Thanks for coming. My name is Richard Miller, and you're at Never Not Here. And thanks for your participation, because I suppose if you weren't around, I wouldn't be doing it. And doing it, what am I doing? Just talking to whoever wants to talk, and I really, really want to spread it out. Maybe you've seen on our website now that the old, well, I used to have a series in the forum, and now I call it Open Mic, and I've put it out so people can see it. So everybody's invited to participate and speak. So today we're talking with Canela Michelle Meyers, and so Canela, so glad to have you back.
Oh, thank you for having this work out so we can be together like this again. Newly.
Right. Fantastic, right. Life is, for me, is really opening up. It feels like it's really opening up, you know. I don't know, you have a concept throughout your life, and you think, oh, when you get old, you get fixed. Maybe a lot of old people are fixed, or I don't know. I feel younger than I've ever felt before in my life, I swear. And more fresh and more ready to participate and more ready to take the miracles of life as they come, and they're coming fast and furious. And I don't see any limits.
That's great. It's more alive. Yeah.
Right. And it takes some time in a life, I think. It seems to really start to open up and be okay with people and let people in. And
allow life. Yeah.
Yeah, allow life in, and life as it appears as another person. And without saying, oh, this guy's not going to like me, or this one is great, you know, I wish but she's not going to accept me, you know, whatever our stories are. And I've kind of been seeing more and more that what we react to is really what our interpretation of life.
Well, an invitation, too.
An invitation?
Oh, yes. A reaction to anything is an invitation from yourself to yourself that something's available to you.
The reaction itself is some kind of a key, in other words.
Yeah, I call it like flagging. Like there's when surveyors go and they put a piece of flagging around trees that, need to be marked because, there's something going on there geologically or something. Well, I call a reaction flagging. It's you inviting yourself to something. And it's rarely about the surface details, but it's an opportunity to feel into that reaction and see what's really going on in that moment.
Even that's a great statement, like what's really going on, Even that's probably absolutely zero too, No, what I was saying is like what we react to is our interpretation. So we have some kind of believed in story. And this
right, but all of it though is consciousness, right? So it's just whatever that believed in story, doesn't matter. It's still an invitation to explore what's really up with you, and if it is, like you say, an interpretation, then that will be found and looked at to see if it's true enough for you to stay with or let it go or move on. I can't say what the result would be, but opening to it, of course, as if it's an invitation is quite different than judging it to be not okay.
Absolutely. But I mean, moving on is the only one of those three that's very worthy, isn't it? I suppose if you got a family, you stay with them, right? But you're still moving on, You're not fixed in any roles.
Absolutely. I mean, and that is one of the things that I explored as a mother directly by letting go of my whole life, including my children, to see what is that relationship really without dropping it 100%. I didn't know what was really there and what was a fabrication of a collective idea that I believed in as what a mother should be how I'm supposed to be with my children, how freedom wasn't as important as following the roles of what a parent ought to be.
So, when you say something like that, it's in a way, it sounds like there's an either or going on, whether it's either freedom or following a role.
If depending on how strong the belief is in the role, if you are a mother, you should be like this or that or the other. But in totally letting go to freedom, then you get to see what's really real. And in this case, love became very much the real thing, and just following my heart to be with these two people that happen to be born through this body. And it looks like from the outside that there's these two sons and there's this mother. And what it is three beings being together. And somewhere we made a choice. So the beauty of it is that I made a conscious choice to include them in my life. And that's very different than just sort of winging it as a mother because I'm supposed to, or the love was still there, but there was all this kind of garbage on top of it that was let go of. Once I let go of the whole thing, then I could see more clearly.
In other words, you accepted the invitation to relate with these two beings, and and not as a duty. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. I let go of the duty of it. I didn't let go of responsibility, although it felt like I did at the time. I couldn't differentiate between the two until I totally let go. And I realized afterwards that I was still responsible, as is appropriate, as what felt right, as my heart would say. They were taken care of. They were provided for. It's not like I left them by themselves in some house or something like that, is what I mean. They were safe. But I needed to let them go 100% to see what was really true, and actually let go of my whole life to see what was true.
When you say role, and when I ask you either or, so then I've heard there's a word called doting. Doting, I think it means like fussing over another person. Doting over your children, right? Or, doting over your grandmother or something like that. But as long as you're doting over someone else, you really are kind of transferring all your questions about who am I and what's this life about. You're just transferring it to a lot of surface things in somebody else, like are they ready for school? Is their hair combed? And
distracted. I would call that distracted. Distracted by the details that you think you should follow.
That are inherent in the role.
Perhaps and perhaps not, because I let go of the role. What ended up happening is the role was still there in the outside appearance. So I'm still a mother to these two people and they're still sons. But what changed was I could speak with them directly and say, okay, this is the appearance of how it is that you were born as my sons and I'm born as your mother. And we're equal, absolutely equal. And there will be times when I'll need to put on my hat, the role hat of a mother. And so I would just tell them when I needed to do that, to say, okay, well, this is feeling like one of those things where I'm going to put my mom hat on and just simply say, because I'm here to take care of you, to keep you, support you to safety. And then, whatever it happened to be that was happening. And they then would accept, okay, that this is part of what the happening was. But most of the time we were and we are, like they're now adults and independent into being responsible for themselves, being 18 and 20 years old now, actually. But there was a time where I held a space for them. And that's part of in fact, maybe that's the only thing that a mother or a father does, is hold a space to support them until they're able to take on more and more of their own selves.
Wouldn't it be something if everyone in the world just said, okay, we're equal beings, like teachers and students, bosses and employees, right? and just says, okay, every once in a while I have to put on the boss hat because it's time for me to sign the papers.
That's right. No, that's a totally different way of relating. The thing is, though, is that we could say that and invite that, but until the person actually experiences the reality of how we are just equal, that there's nobody that's more than or less than anybody else, until that's a direct experience, it's kind of tricky, you know. But I can tell you where I had that direct experience, because it was in satsang with Isaac Shapiro. And it's something that has invited me to carry on with the offering of offering the chair for people to come up and sit and be themselves fully in satsang sessions. Because when Isaac offered that, I did go sit up in the front. And what I saw was the image that I saw, or the vision, was that everybody was a lighted candle. I saw 100 candles, lit candles in front of me. Like, I'm talking literally, that's what I actually saw. And I noticed that all of those candle flames were exactly the same. And Isaac was out there, and that was the thing. His candle flame was exactly the same size as everybody in the room. And so I totally could see it. It became a fact for me that we're all the same.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to do it. It could go the other way, you know, like I remember like 30 years ago, I had this girlfriend, we were at some kind of very famous guru, and she just said, I just saw it, he's just like us. So instead, she saw that he was just us, and you saw that everybody was Isaac Shapiro. It's kind of like...
Well, actually, no, I saw everybody was the same, including him.
Yeah.
So, and then that's kind of come again and again and again in different scenarios, how much we are just equal, no matter if somebody's a Supreme Court judge or somebody on the street. There isn't somebody that's more than somebody else. It has nothing to do with money, where we live. There's this equality that's just absolutely true.
I've been hanging around a university here in the Chicago area, and I was meeting a lot of PhDs and department heads and deans and stuff.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I guess I'm kind of like real, you know, like you said, it's a little tricky until you really have that direct experience. And I guess I have all kinds of feelings like, what are these guys, you know, what's going on here? They're real nice, you know, but I think they're just as confused as me. I'm not so sure.
Well, I feel that's true. And of course, we can't speak for them because they need to speak from their own experience. But that's a similar thing. And when I represented myself in custody for my children, there was like a 3-year period of Supreme Court confrontations, if you call it. And I was not very willing to go into that realm, being, you know, more into healing and energies and stuff. Who wants to go into a Supreme Courthouse? And nevertheless, consciousness said, here, step here. In each moment, I just kept making the next step, and I would question and say, you want me to what? You want me to go into the Supreme Court? And, you know, and yet it was true. So step by step, I ended up representing myself and my children in the Supreme Court without any legal expertise, learning a lot. And I found out that there is no authority over anybody. It's just what we believe authority to be.
It's kind of, I read this thing that said like man's law is or the law of the mind, you know, someone wins and someone loses. But somehow divine law, everybody's a winner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the actual details of that court result, it looked like I had failed, and I was actually quite surprised by that because I figured that consciousness was taking me through this step-by-step process to clean things up and bring a level of balance to what was out of balance. So I had some very natural human expectation that things would be very rosy, and that wasn't the case. In a way, at the beginning, it seemed like I lost a lot. And then afterwards, it was a total winning, an absolute winning um, that I couldn't have imagined through a logical mind frame. It was just a total gift how things ended up, the results of that court proceedings. Even though it looked like in the actual details of it, I, lost.
So that's very interesting, that it sounds like you somehow that when everyone was thinking, she lost, she should have had an attorney, she should have had some guidance and so on. And somehow you didn't believe it or disbelieve it. I mean, somehow you were still
Well,
open to everything unfolding in any way that it could possibly unfold.
um, in a bigger way, at first I had to go through quite disappointment to be a single mother in the North Vancouver, in this Vancouver area. It's a very expensive place to live, and to be um, not supported financially with the child support was cut down to less than half of what it was. It meant, or it appeared to be, that life was going to be harder for myself and my sons to carry on without financial support from their father. And I'm just talking child support. I'm not talking about alimony at all. So the child support itself got cut down. And I'm just saying that afterwards, the beauty of it was that I was okay. I could still trust. I could still carry on supporting myself and my children on all levels without any logical, actual, I ought not to have, according to opinions, shall we say. And yet I did, and did quite well. Um, so that's what I mean. More that the opinions of failing in the court proceedings, it was more like other lawyers would say, wow, that shouldn't have happened. The judge doesn't usually rule in that direction in these cases. And, he hadn't been particularly forthright to the judge, and apparently they were supposed to respond adversely towards someone if that was the case, and she didn't. In fact, if anything, she leaned more towards his side, if you will. There was really no sides in the bigger picture, but in the actual experiencing of going through the court process, there is all the human details of that.
Must be very, very difficult to be a judge.
Yes, yeah. Actually, I had a client who came for Reiki sessions once a week for quite a while there, just to release all the tensions off her neck and shoulders. And I really couldn't imagine having to be in a position to make decisions based on this very surface level of detail that affects people's lives so greatly.
Even that, as we started, okay, let me just kind of recount a little bit the way I remember. We started, and I was trying to say that what we react to is our interpretation. And you said something like, what's coming through, what's happening in this moment is an invitation to go in and see what's really up.
When there's a reaction.
Yeah, well, every moment is some kind of reaction, because, this instrument of a body reverberates with every ripple in the universe.
Well, I guess there's a difference for me between responding and reacting.
Uh-huh. So responding, tell me.
Responding is like the wind comes along and blows and the branch moves.
Yeah, the tree bends, and doesn't break.
Yep, that's a response. It's a natural response. Reacting is where, as if the tree could try to stop bending when the wind comes. That's the tree would be reacting to the wind and saying, no, I'm not going to be natural.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a very good example, because trees, of course.
Oh, yeah. No, but I mean, okay, let's go. Let's say that with that, and let's go and say that reacting is just something, reacting causes even a more noticeable effect. right? I
Yes,
mean,
there's more energy to it.
right. It resounds louder and it has a
You
more squiggly feeling.
and usually at some level, in some way, it's a form of no. It's a form of non-acceptance. So a reaction is often saying no to what is actually happening.
Wouldn't it be always? I mean, when does a reaction say yes? Or, you could turn around and
Well,
say, yes, I'll run away, or no, I won't stay here. I mean, those are two points of view that are the same, right?
well, no, but that's the difference between a response and a reaction. So a response is yes, it just the tree just moves, it just bends. If you say some words and then they come and they touch me, they get integrated here, and then I respond to you, and it's just a natural flow. Now, if we were to uh, attempt to be in some sort of reaction, then I would say something like, well, you shouldn't be the way that you are. And then you retaliate back, So we're kind of saying no to what is. Because
Right.
of course, you are what you are. There's no should about it. Is that a very good example? Or
Well, I mean, I think we all get that, but I would just wanted to comment that maybe even a court case that seems to be unjustly decided is also an invitation.
absolutely, it was a total invitation where I could go into virtual hell over it, and I needed to balance with these details and say, okay, even this, how do I say yes to this and find my way to being open and allowing even that? And basically, it comes down to trust. I needed to let this energy fall through, total accepting how it was. Um, Luckily, it would have been too expensive to try to appeal the court decision.
You'd be
uh,
wound up in that for a long time.
yeah, so it was that again was a blessing. So I was able to accept how, even though it was uncomfortable and seemed unjust, to totally accept the result and carry on from there. And then it was afterwards that the blessings sort of came in. At the time, I didn't actually see it. All I could do was accept how it was, and that took quite a bit for me to do, to allow it to just level by level to just totally accept this is how it was, this is how it was going to be, and okay, now now what? Where do I go from here? And what will be for supper? And how is you know whatever, does the laundry need being done? Or what about my next Reiki client? Is the table ready? Whatever it is, those day-to-day details that need tending to.
So then I get it, but my point is just that then we're the ones that are going to say, no, this is totally wrong. This shouldn't be this way. I can't make it happen. You know,
Yeah, and that's suffering.
that's the interpretation is what I'm calling. That's the interpretation. And that's what we react to. We react to. And then, of course, that's just some kind of an agreement. That's somebody saying what justice is or what my standard of living is. Or
Yeah, well, it's different than allowing and feeling, um, surrendering to it through feeling it, letting the actual energy, because we're energy bodies, even the mind, thoughts, everything's energy. But there's honesty is the key there, because what I might react to compared to what you might react to are different things. So we could both be in the same moment and one person have a reaction and one not. But it comes down to our honesty. Am I feeling some energy around this? Am I reacting, or am I open? And then checking the system to see the level of openness. And sometimes it needs to be that there's some contraction in order to move through to another space where there's more space to be open. So in other words, there's no wrong, and there's also an opportunity to open to things, because the habit is the collective ends up being that there's more often people are in reaction, and then they're just backpedaling, and then they're off into the surface details instead of being with the deeper levels of themselves.
What did you say? The habit in the collective is reacting.
In the collective, say in the collective realm of human, the collective mind, um, I don't like to call it mind because it's what is modeled. So it's not just the mind, but it is the whole being. Um, so what's normally modeled and what we're taught is to be field dependent and to take the surface details seriously. Like, I should have a car and a family and, all these different things instead of following what might be true inside, what really wants to happen from a heartfelt sense of you as a being. We're taught to follow these outward things.
Right.
We're
So,
taught,
like, what is modeled, you said. So, what is modeled is like, it kind of means like I've been always saying we learn by imitation, but really you're just saying that that's not even the case because we can learn also by just looking what's really true for us. So, but we never look there. We just look toward that model. So I was thinking that we were in this field of consciousness, which was kind of like immersed in this model and was the collective consciousness. And
yeah,
then,
I call it a river. And there's a level, a part of consciousness that's not aware of itself. So it's a river that's flowing. And it takes quite a bit. First, it takes your interest to step to the bank of the river and get out of that energy flow that says we need to follow this in our lifetime. We need to try to amass lots of money. We need to have a house with a white picket fence and 2 children and a dog, and go towards these false ideals. I mean, those things can occur naturally as a side effect of just living a true natural self.
so in other words,
Um,
we're conforming to a conceptual construct or this kind of,
yeah,
and it
we're
flows as
falling.
a river. It flows. It has its own momentum, and people, as long as people sign on and go for it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
that's where they need this strong commitment to decide, okay, this isn't working. I can go with this, and it just doesn't seem to be what life is for. And they can decide to begin to look at life differently and get out of the river, step onto the bank in this open place where they'll feel alone and face being sort of out of that flow where everybody's kind of numbed into the belief that we should live as goal oriented
they're just
towards.
focused on that. In other words, it means numb means like I don't know. They're just believing that that's I don't know. You just don't know any different. You
That's right,
don't think
until
there's.
you
You
do.
think that is. That's it. That's life. And then I can either participate or I can just pull back and withdraw. But withdrawing isn't automatically introspection. It's just like that is numbing.
It can be. That's one side and the other side, right? One is going with something blindly without, just following like a lemming, I guess. And then the other one is withdrawing and not participating. In between those two is the moment. And that's where a person is willing to be vulnerable, they're willing to be real, and simply be exactly what they are, a human being. And that means if whatever it is that's going on, to be true and feel the energy, feel the emotions, feel, and admit the thoughts that might occur that aren't very beautiful at first look, but yet in the humanness, it makes sense that they might show up. Um, so this is the acceptance. It's being willing to expose yourself to yourself, to get out of the river so you can see who it is you really are and begin to explore that in each moment.
Let's talk about that some more because you said on. I just want to kind of focus in on that and just say where's the entrance, where's the doorway, where's the entrance point, where's the hook where we can grab it? Because like one side is just kind of like saying this is the flow, this is the conventional wisdom, this is what everyone's doing in
Yep,
our part of the world, and some call it the rat race and stuff like that. And then the other
exactly.
part is a withdrawal where you just say, no, not me, and wear your hat backwards. And, in the old days, have long hair. You're the contrarian, in other words. And, but you're really not for anything. You're just against stuff. And in a way, you're lonely there too, in a way, because or you find other people that are contrarians, let's say, and however that comes, that's what I call it. And
Yep.
then
And
somewhere in between is your true self. Now, what do you mean by that? I mean, why is that in between? And is it really in between, or is it just
well,
some?
because the two options that you gave, one being in the rat race and one being not, not in the rat race as a rule, both of
Withdrawing
those
from
are,
it? Yeah, that's like reacting
yeah,
against the rat race.
right. But it's still based on something outside of themselves. Whereas in between the two is only you in the moment. What's really true right here. So there are no rules, there are no guidelines. So when a person withdraws from the rat race and they just join another group that's against the rat race and call that freedom, that's not freedom either. That's just the other side. And it's got its whole new level of rules and regulations and what you're supposed to follow. And it won't be fulfilling either, but a person can try it out for a while until they find out that that too doesn't work.
Yeah,
And
you
so
get the feeling like knocking other people is really good, and that you got to tell it like it is, and they're all hypocrites over there, and
that's right.
right.
Yeah, this sharing of the truth.
Yeah, wait a second. Let me just do this though. Let's just kind of rephrase this a little bit instead of saying the rat race. Already we're putting something kind of like a color on it. Let's just
Yep.
call it entrepreneurship. And that there's a belief in that. And okay, a lot of kids are in college and universities, and they're thinking, well, why shouldn't I participate with the society? I mean, and so we're saying that introspection is not exactly that, and that might be distracting from really knowing what's happening or how it's going, because it is external. And so then, is it necessary? Let's say you're a positive person. You want to say, I want to participate. Let me see what I can do to make this society better. I could be an entrepreneur or somehow support entrepreneurship and be a good employee or kind of a knowledgeable person. And so, do you have to go through a disillusion to really start to look into yourself? I mean, here's your two sons. They're probably entering the university, and they're probably thinking of careers and things like that. I mean, in a way, we could call that, I'm trying to give it a positive name of entrepreneurship, but we could call it the rat race or exterior goals, or we could call it a fixed view of life. But I mean,
Well, it's
right.
only if it's bought into as if you're following the field, that which is outside of you. Making a choice to go to university um, is a commitment right now, and then you commit to the next semester or the next year, and then you just step into each moment and follow your own commitment to do your homework, to show up for class, to do what you already committed to. If that's still true for you, you might find stepping into the university environment that maybe it doesn't feel that's that true for you. It doesn't mean buying into the whole weighty look of the thing. It still means just being present in each moment. It's like my decision to go into the court process. I had to look at, well, is this true? Is this the very best thing? And feeling into that, it felt like consciousness said, yes, this is the step to take. And then once I stepped there, there was a lot of paperwork and commitments and showing up into court stuff and all sorts of things that came in the container of that commitment. So a person doesn't need to be intertwined with the rat race unless they do, so they can feel the difference. So,
What do you mean? Unless they do, so they can feel the difference. Say that in another way, or
well, in order to be conscious of yourself, to become conscious means you needed to be unconscious so you can feel what the difference is. So, just like in your own self, uh, coming into the awakened state, there is something in you that knows this is true. And you wouldn't know that this is true unless you were previously unconscious and believing in something else. So you can feel the difference of what freedom is, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, you can see the difference between a fixed focus, and a more open focus that could be just handle whatever's coming through, and still I think you can do that while you're on a committed program, committed even lightly. But
Absolutely.
I mean, in the university, well, you make a few adjustments. I mean, you change your major and things like that, and you make some friends, and people work together, and usually you're
Exactly.
committed to finish it, because it seems like there is a part of it that says each class is a value, but the degree is more. It's a synergy. So that you got to get the paper that says I did all these classes.
Or maybe you're just in that container and you complete it. And it's not really about the paper. That's just a side effect that comes. But the difference is one is following a goal outside of yourself, and the other is following what's true inside of yourself. So with my sons, with Stephen and Danny, I don't like to call them mine, right? Because, that's what I did let go of, is ownership of them. And yet, perfect
We
beings, they
understand.
are.
We
Yeah.
understand.
So anyway, where they are is that they are connected to themselves. So they're resourceful, like they're connected to source inside. So they can choose to feel into what's true, what's right, every day, 10 times a day if need be, to see which direction to go. And so they go through life in this moment and in this moment and make a choice and then follow the steps that they've decided until that doesn't feel right. And then turn left, turn right, depending on what's true. So it's the difference is being you yourself is the source, the resource, instead of looking outside of yourself. You can include the information from the teachers, from the whole campus scenario of whatever it is that everybody's, I don't know, for or against in the moments of time that somebody's experiencing a school process. And they can get involved in things if that's what it feels right to do, or exciting or interesting, or their curiosity calls them that way. And it might be because they're supposed to be supporting whatever that theme might be. And it might be because they're supposed to meet somebody there that's in that group. It's not really knowing what the outcome, it's letting go of any long-term goal, and being with what's actually occurring in that they've committed to.
When you say if it feels right, because I have a notion, and I've said this for some time, I think, that our life probably really zigs and zags a lot, because depending on how light of a feeling is enough to make us say it feels right or feels wrong, or maybe it's very interesting to see how bad it can get. And people have that experience in the army or something like that, or in prison. They have then they're constrained to do things that if it feels right, they'll have to see exactly how they can get through it. And maybe a way to get through it is to somehow separate and be numbed out and be in a zone, fantasy zone or something. I don't know, but I mean, I guess each one of us is the measure of that. What can we take for this moment?
Well, yeah, it's I mean, John DeRuiter put it really nicely in one of his books by saying consciousness will continue to trap itself to find freedom. So in this human experience, we might bring things on in our lives, make choices that seem like they're constrictive, and it's our way, our expression is to find freedom in the midst of all of it, whatever that is for us. And finding our way, the side effect of that, of finding freedom in this scenario and then this scenario and then the next scenario, we expand. So we're willing to keep finding our way no matter what. And that is life, actually, as far as I've found it to be. There's new levels of myself that come up as I give myself more space. New things come in to work with, to deal with, to be with in a new way that I've never known how to be before. Um, and then that becomes integrated and becomes embodied. And then the next thing comes along, and again, out into the open of the unknown, um, and begin the process again.
Let's go back to, we were saying rat race, and then I said there must be a softer way to say it, and I called it entrepreneurship, or, just the whole college gig, like how to participate in society and with what's going on in society. So there's what they call NGOs that service, there's service organizations, there's businesses, companies, there's just, starting your own kind of profession. There's professions and all these things. So then here these young beings are going into this university atmosphere, and we're telling them that society is the place to participate. This is where the action is, and it's got a few kinks in it, and we're gonna look at ways to iron them out. So you're going to be a really good participator in a contribution, because you're going to have foresight and a certain breadth where you can see what affects how things affect each other, and you're going to. And so then, in a way, we're spinning a yarn. We're telling a great idea. We're saying that. Positing a lot of great possibilities, and most of them are all outside. We're focusing, and the focus gets stronger and stronger as we build these great stories, to look outside and to say that these things are going to be great, and when I can really get more involved in them, my life will be great. But we're really not saying anything about moment by moment and who are you, who am I? I'm not the professor, I'm not the guy that wrote the textbook, I'm not the dean, you kind of know who you're not, but you really don't know who you are. I mean, are we messing up? Is there a missing ingredient there? Can both those things somehow, outside and inside, coexist, and should they be spoken about?
Absolutely. The difference is following the interest. Like each student going in, just keep following what you're interested in, following what brings you aliveness, what feels like a yes. And then making a commitment to that, and then following through until you complete your commitment.
Now, just say the commitment part now, just before we move on. What do you? Why do you need to do that? Do you need to do that? Why do you need to do it? What's
Well, suppose there's an okay, I'll use my one son Stephen, who's
just let me just say one more thing, because like if you're interested, what do you need a commitment for? Because that's your interest. You would be glued to that thing, right?
I don't know. For myself, I have an interest in artwork. I've always loved to draw as a child. It was one of the ways I found solstice for myself. And even though I enjoy it and it's important to me, I find I have to commit to a class in order to actually have it happen. Mm-hmm. So I commit to and pay for a time container that says, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to actually allow this part of me to play. Without that, I get swept away in the day-to-day happenings, because one thing's happening after the other. And so I've noticed that, hey, you know what, my artwork's not happening. And so what I've learned is I need to commit to that. And, sometimes I haven't felt like going to my art class, but because I committed to it, I go, and then I enjoy it once I'm there. So It supports me to go through that. So it's the same thing in the university. So my one son is going into computer science. So perhaps calculus isn't a lot of fun when he's in the midst of it, but yet because his interest is learning about math and the intricacies of that, even though it might be uncomfortable, he's still following his joy, which has always been mathematically inclined, and a very interested in information, like he used to as a child read encyclopedias. So that's a natural interest of his. So whereas mine's artwork or writing, or perhaps it's obvious I really am interested in people and what they feel and what's really going on, thoughts, all the different levels. So my interest has taken me into, a multitude of different workshops to learn more about the human aspect, what it's like to be a human on Earth. And that's my interest. So I can say yes to taking a course and completing it, even if I don't agree sometimes with what's going on within it. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that answers my question about what commitment means. I mean, I don't necessarily feel committed to what I'm doing in a way because I'm so interested in it that there would be no way I could ever move away. Just like when you spoke about your interest of what makes people tick, and what makes, in a way to talk about it could be philosophical, but I mean, you just want, it's way more than that too, because you want to see it in action also, and just by looking and by seeing, just really realize what can happen.
It's a wonderful thing. It's like that interest that just came with this system of Canela. I was just born with this interest in other people, in always being curious what's really going on, and being intimate. Truly, that vulnerability has been just the sweetest thing to this heart, and I'm so thankful that it's been here. I'm thankful that this interest has been here, because I see lots of people that the interest is not there, and that's because their interest is in something else. It doesn't mean that this interest is the right one for everybody. It just is, or it isn't. I'm just thankful that it is here with me and continues to be, because it does give me direction.
So then, like when we were talking about the in between, the outer and the reaction to the outer, and which is like the withdrawal from the outer, and we said the in between is kind of like I don't know, maybe introspection, but really what's needed is kind of like a platform for interest, where people's interest can be, and I guess that's what the university is trying to do, because they have many courses
Yes.
of study. They're a platform for being interested.
For following your interest. So I see universities, colleges, they're all opportunities, no matter what it is that's going on in life. But that's an exceptionally good one, because it's directly all about learning, and you just get to gobble up stuff without having to be also working at the same time, or perhaps you are too. But while you're there in the class, it's about receiving information and digesting and seeing what is the latest look on or aspect on all these different subjects in school.
Receiving and digesting, sometimes that seems like it's a hard task, because you could receive a lot, because there's a lot of stuff there. And I was always thinking like it should be kind of like creating and discovering. But I guess that's relegated to graduate school, right? And you're saying it's such a wide field that you're supposed to have a very, very broad foundation of what the common consensus is, and what, where we stand in the knowledge base. And then you can kind of discover and create. But I like a small, like we do these dialogues, I think they're discoveries. And then
Yes.
if you were just telling me a lot of stuff and I was just receiving and digesting, I don't think much would go in. But it might sound good, I suppose I would like it, but I wonder if it would change my life.
I don't know, and that's where, with different teachers, whether in a university or whether for satsang, or, it's to follow a feeling, a draw, instead of following logical information. I mean, you can follow logical information, like the person has written so many books or whatever, to a certain degree, but for the innermost, it needs to resonate. Like just to feel a pull towards yourself is what's really going on. So when somebody goes to university, if they are following their true interest, then they'll be following that pull from inside. Often people are following what they think their parents want, because they don't know what they want yet. And that can still be okay, because they can still go into the, I'll call it a container of university, and explore that to see, because they don't have another choice that they know of, or they don't know what their interest is. They might be led to it through one course or another, or even by people that they meet.
So that platform of expressing or discovering interest wasn't somehow there before, or if it was there, somehow it wasn't acceptable, or somehow there was something about it that didn't seem, there wasn't that participation, and so the discovery of an interest was maybe late coming. I would say, even in my life, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Very late to find an interest, and much more on the withdrawal and non-participating.
Yeah, I guess for me, I followed my first husband's life force, and was in support of his life force. I mean, it ended up long term being supportive of myself, and I learned a lot. But I was trained by the modeling that was around me to follow someone else and be supportive of them, because that's what happened in my parents' scenario. So that's what I learned to follow without really knowing that's what I was actually doing, until I came to a place that sort of started to look at, well, what do I want? Where is this Michelle? It was, I go by Canela Michelle. At the time, I was just Michelle. Where is she in this, and what about her? And I realized she just wasn't available. So I began to do workshops to explore this Michelle and try to give her space to come forward so I could get to know her.
I think many of us are schooled in supportive roles. I mean, okay, if I'm an administrative assistant, or if I'm, if I, no matter where you are in a company formation, there's a group of people that work for one boss, and we're trying to make him look good, right? I think it's a supportive role, right? And then you might just lose yourself. But is that wrong? Or, I mean, I would even say I'm still in
Well,
that, I guess.
yeah, no, I totally. I mean, if anything, who am I most like would be Hanuman, um, and that's a supportive. I'm of service to people who are interested in finding their way themselves. So that support is absolutely, or service. Just as what you're doing here in this work is you're of service to all of this. So I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that now includes me. What I was doing before and supporting my husband in his way didn't include my way. It was all about him. And in a way, I didn't even exist, except for as a support to his direction.
That's actually a kind of a spiritual study, right? Where you just cease to exist by totally supporting the master, the bhakti role,
Uh,
or the
I
devotional
suppose
path, or the.
he'd love it. He'd love it that you were likening him to a master. Excuse me. Um, so it can be, and that too. So earlier when we were talking about contractions and the necessity of them, or being unconscious is necessary in becoming conscious. That yes, for me, being subservient showed me where I didn't exist, where it was so cut and dried or black and white, that when I started to come forth and figure out that there was somebody here that I needed to support, this woman, it was well, I guess like an earthquake. So it was very defined, going from one to the other. Um, Made it very clear and easy to see that I hadn't been including her once I started including her. So there's the benefit of being subservient. But the part that is the choice point is at some level, at some point, as happened with me, I needed to come to a place where I realized it just wasn't working. Something wasn't right. Uh, it was just not going forward. Something in life was not uh, clicking. I could only go as far as I could go, and then had to make another choice. And that's the choicelessness. I had to come to a place of choicelessness that could no longer be subservient to somebody else's direction. I needed to include this life force, this expression of humanness, this woman. And same as later, I came to a choiceless place where I had to let go of my life, because whatever it was that was calling inside demanded 100% of my attention, 100% space to just give that inside space. And that's when I let go of my life. I didn't know until afterwards that it was a renunciation, but learned afterwards that is what I had done, is completely renounce my life to connect with, at the time, I termed it God. And now that definition changes. It's sometimes consciousness, the universe, awareness, God, goddess, higher self, Waheguru, all of that.
Has that renunciation softened? Is that a word that was overdone, or was that also needed?
It was needed, but it wasn't. I didn't know that's what I was doing. When I let go of my children in my life, I didn't know of the word renunciation. I didn't know that that was a spiritual thing to do. All I knew is that I had to let go of my life because I was kind of using my husband and my children as an excuse to not do what I knew needed to happen from inside myself. And all I knew, what my heart said, was that I had to, what actually showed up was be in a cave in the Himalaya. But I don't like the cold. So when this different form came, kind of a cave, but not an uncomfortable one, was to step into this group with Paul Lowe. And that became my place that I could land and let go of my life. And then I was with people who somewhat comprehended my need to do that, because I didn't understand it whatsoever. All I knew is that it was true, it was 100%, and I'd been attempting to not take that step for quite some time until I had to. There was no more choice.
I think I know of Paul.
Great teacher.
I didn't hear that you, the last time we talked, I didn't hear about that, or I didn't know about that.
Yeah, what happened was I was doing healing work at a place here on the West Coast called PD Seminars. And I noticed that all of the teachers, the facilitators of these groups that I felt particularly drawn to do work with, started disappearing. And they were all going to the same place. They were all going to travel with this guy named Paul Lowe. And so I got curious, what is this? And went to a information evening when he was here in Vancouver and bought his book, The Experiment is Over. And so that's when it began. That's the first time I realized that everybody has, I just read it in his book, that everybody could wake up. It was a choice they could make. And when I read it, I knew that it was true. And so it became a process of, for me, I looked at, okay, so wake up then, I said to myself. And I waited for it to happen. And I realized, I don't even know how I knew that wasn't it, but I knew it wasn't it. so I started to look at, okay, what's in my own way? What is in my own way from this awakened state of being? And then that's the process that began to happen. I made a commitment consciously to explore that. So that's quite different than being field dependent and deciding I'm going to make a decision to be a lawyer, or I'm going to be a this or that or the other. Those things can be along with it, but they're kind of peripheral to the inner exploration or the purpose of life to awaken to itself. So Paul Lowe provided a spot for me with like-hearted people to step to. It was a lily pad in my life, a place to step where I could let go of my life. And it was a heck of a lot more comfortable, a lot more fun and interesting than going into a cave in the Himalaya. And I'm thankful to that. I'm thankful to Paul and to Ava, who was his partner at the time. And as Paul Lowe would say, he said, don't take my word for it, explore this yourself. And so that's what I did. He would suggest different things. I didn't just take it on because it felt true. I actually explored these things until the direct experience was experienced here with me. So then it was true for me. I wouldn't know until I actually tried it that it was true.
Something happened when you started to talk about Paul. I guess I knew him as Tirtha.
That was before, yeah. No, I didn't have a personal connection with him. I was just part of the groups, and more I was connected to all the people that were attracted by him and Ava. Very amazing people from all over the world. And Paul Lowe's support of intimacy, which was very similar to Osho, but Paul's flavor of that was extremely supportive in being able to really be honest and vulnerable and open in a delightful, total unknown with other human beings who were also willing to be in the unknown. Beautiful, very beautiful. And when the time came, there was like a process, a refining of this woman that I am in that container with Paul. And then Isaac showed up. And so I went to one day satsang and then found myself in a week-long group. And that's when it happened. That's when all that was let go of itself completely, and there was just emptiness. And that's how it's been since then, on that first night of the week-long retreat with Isaac. So it was like life picked me up from this group with Paul and Ava. At the time I was in Australia, and brought me to Isaac, and Isaac pointed and everything shattered, and that's how it's been since then. It hasn't wavered. So yeah, it's really those two people, and Ava too, to some degree, because she was in there as well, were the main, where I would say consciously supporting consciousness. They're both available for that kind of support, and that's where I received a lot of support. And then things happen, and I'm off into the next part of life, and then people inviting me to also offer to share from this expression of Canela. And that's what ends up finding me here with you. on Never Not Here. Thankfully. Thank you, Richard.
So I've actually, I've had it in my sights to talk with Paul and sent him some things, and had some other people that know him in good ways to kind of draw his attention to what I'm doing. And part of that is I also talked to some other people from that back in that period, and something about those, I suppose, 30 years or 28 years. It's amazing. It's just amazing to realize that many years have gone by, and with no kind of remorse or judgment, or, I mean, how can I say? There's not even any counting of it, but somehow it's just amazing that the half a lifetime for me ago, and then to reconnect with some of these people that I knew then, not intimately, surely, but
Yeah. No,
I don't know what it means. It's like it's another parenthesis that you could see life from a different angle, and
yeah, a way of support. It's a support to see life.
In a way,
with the support of,
in a way, everything in between just can drop as a nothing. You realize that, from that parenthesis, that, I don't know, what should I say, that life is just here, and all that stuff that happened, it doesn't make any. It's nothing. I don't know how to say that. I don't know if I can. I'm just discovering.
I know what you mean, because
it's like that wasn't me. That wasn't me. None of that stuff was me, and I'm them. And all that. It's just like, it's really an amazing thing.
And yet it is you, because it's still part of what makes up who you are today, right?
I don't know. It's just not.
Well,
it's not really the me. It's just like a whole big long story and a historical perspective.
In these moments, though, that we're speaking of this, and you remember, or you're allowing memories of some apparent past time, you allowed it to rise right here, right now. So
yeah, the same beingness was there, Okay, maybe it's a memory or not, I don't know, but somehow the same beingness just showed up, and then boom, there was there was a huge,
it's here.
It was like a huge shining happening. And you were just talking about Paul, and there was this huge light and shining that was just happening and everything. It was like, whoa.
Right. And that's why what I mean by it's part of you. It doesn't go away. It is a part of you. And if it should rise in the next moment, it will, and then it becomes part of that moment, just like it did right here. Like, my time with Paul Lowe was around 1994 until 1998, and that's it. And I've been aware of somewhat of where he's been, and I've been in contact with people who I was connected with then, and I miss a lot of those people. Because, I don't know, just in true intimacy, you share hearts so delightfully. And Paul Lowe seemed to help create a very magical, loving space. And just being in that magicalness together with others. We shared something, and it's with me now, just in speaking about that and feeling grateful about that time and those people that I connected with personally, as well as, like I say, the appreciation to Paul and Ava for creating that container where I got to experience so much, supported me to experience so much. But it was myself that brought those experiences to myself. And that's the same thing that in satsang with Canela, I again and again let people know that, whatever it is they experience is theirs. They're the ones that are allowing it. They're the ones that are experiencing whatever they're experiencing. I'm not doing anything. All I'm doing is offering a container where possibilities might happen due to the energy of things that I've offered for and embodied myself as a human being.
I want to go back a little bit, to talk about when we were speaking about the university and we were speaking about youth and
Mm-hmm.
your sons and how generations are passed, the conventional wisdom and the collective consciousness is very much mirrored, as we said, that there's a modeling going on. And also it's consciously passed by structuring conceptual structures and presenting them and actually somehow presenting them as something interesting too, that you could follow an interest, and this is where you focus to build this interest. And I'm sure that's a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's what a university is offering, because a university and colleges, I mean, they have such an impact on the evolution of human beings because the energy is such a fire. I think you mentioned earlier, or maybe when we talked about something with emails about the fire of the passion of the young people and how powerful that is. And we look at universities is where that youth they're willing to take risks and discuss, they have time to discuss different issues in life and team together and become a momentum. And different teachers within the university, that have different flavors and have something to share, just in their essence, as well as perhaps their curriculum.
Well, the whole university is an essence, as well as the curriculum. I mean, you can see
Yes.
that just like something is going in the pores and something else is going in the mental apparatus, and
Yes.
something is also happening on the basis of self-confidence and poise. Definitely,
Yes.
you can I just had an opportunity to talk to about 36 students and film them, and they were of all different ages, from freshmen, sophomores, seniors, grad students, and so on, and a lot of people from foreign lands. It's amazing experience. I'm just saying the way we posited this, the outward and the inward, is that somehow you had to see that the outward didn't work, and many times, in order to turn in and see what works there. And then take
No,
a new look of the outside. Take another look at what.
yeah, I would say it's the attachment to the outside. It's not the outside. It's just that, that's the temptation, is to attach to it as if it's important.
Okay, well, the
And then,
attachment is merely, I think the attachment is merely that not knowing that that's not, that's not all there is, that's it, And so then naturally I'm attached to it because if that's it. But I'm just saying, okay, this platform of interest somehow is lopsided.
well,
It just looks
if
at
the
what other
person,
people are saying.
but you can include what other people are saying, um, and respond in the moment. I mean, it still comes back to, and the level of vibration of people, students or at any age these days. I mean, there's no knowing who is who or what level of vibration people are at. I mean, a lot of younger people are totally, as far as I can tell, awakened. Um, there's less in their way. I mean, that is part of all the different people that have committed to this other direction, other than being outward bound. What I call, like you say, a platform. It's like going in to come out. So it includes the outside.
No, I get
And it
that. I
includes,
get that totally, But I'm
yeah.
just saying that there's less in their way, you said, but they don't know it. It's just that they're unnatural,
So,
and then somehow.
well, some do know it. Some do just naturally. You can, I mean, it's like in the Olympics. I mean, it's a bit different, but that snowboarder from the United States, I mean, he was really following his interest. That one guy that was just unbelievable, dancing in the air on this snowboard, was breathing who he is. And there are many young people who are truly following their interest, even though it may look like from the outside view that they're following the field, or looking to gain some outward goal from things, or following the white picket fence idea. I must go to school because I must earn a living, because I must work and participate in society, instead of, okay, I'm going to follow what I'm interested in, and take this and this and this, because that will support me in the direction that I'm wanting to go.
I heard a kind of an amazing story from India. I met a guy that I'd known before, and I said, "How's your brother?" Because he was never working, and he was only liking playing video games and stuff. So that this guy is actually testing software. And so he found a place where his brother could test video games, and now he plays video games 10 hours a day and gets paid for it.
Well, that's actually, I had some arthroscopic surgery here in Vancouver just a couple years ago on my knee. And that's what my surgeon actually said. He said the best training for arthroscopic surgery is video games, because you're needing to get that eye to hand coordination to do the surgery, that your hands are going to do this meticulous work way out there while you're watching the computer.
In other words, there's not that much feel to it. It's more of only you're watching the picture of where your needle's going, or where.
Well, no, there's by feel as well. It's definitely included, as is, I think, in video games, is even tobogganing, that you lean a little left, or you lean a little right. It's there's a way of being with the games naturally. Like I'm not very good at video games, and especially those car ones. I mean, partially because I get motion sickness, or I have had motion sickness up until now. I actually get queasy. I couldn't even watch Avatar without. I had to leave the theater because the 3D. It just isn't right for me. But for other people, I can see there are some people who are very naturally that way, and can, I guess it reminds me of, Pinball Wizard, that song.
Oh yeah. Right.
The
I remember.
Deaf, dumb, and blind kid, right?
I remember.
Playing the mean pinball. So he's totally playing by feel.
Right.
And sometimes that's what life is just play it by feel. Go for what feels to be right, being in touch with yourself as an actual human form, as an energy field, being in touch with that simultaneously as you step, as you speak, as you rest. All of it, each moment.
How could you say that in the university, and how could you create a platform where you could feel that more and more? How could that be, that you could actually say that you could move through business MBA by feel? Not only by feel, of course, but I mean, include that.
It's by feel, but inclusive of the details, and tending to what comes your way. Like, so I mean, tend to something like a garden, right? As the seeds come up. So you plant these seeds, you commit to taking art therapy, perhaps, and then you tend to that garden, which might be this course and this amount of homework, and you've got to put these exams through and papers through by a certain time. You kind of put yourself through this system and it will support a refining of that person to have put themselves through something like that.
Say some more about that. It will support a refining and
inclusion, integration. So when a student immerses themselves in their topic of interest, they actually, like you said earlier, there's an actual essence there that they can become a part of, and they can lean this way or that way depending on their interest and which courses, to actually have that embodied into their system by going through the paces, by taking each step. And the more they include the felt sense of themselves, say sitting in a classroom, letting, as the teacher or the lecturer is speaking, letting the sound of their words and what they're sharing come into their system instead of attempting to lean forward and grab that attention or
Judge
send
it,
their attention.
judge it, or memorize
Exactly.
it, or grasp it.
That's right. Grasp it, and like that, just letting that stuff, grasping, trying, and instead letting the information come into the system
See,
and
that's
supporting.
exactly what I'm looking at. It'll support a refinement. In other words, that's true growth.
Yeah,
Whereas just pouring information in your head and grasping at it and trying to memorize it and cramming your tests is not at all a growth, really. I mean, there's some growth happening there. There's something happening, but I mean, what is it? And you said so many things just in that last
yeah.
minute.
And it might be doing the tests and doing the homework and cramming this stuff if that's what tending to your interests include. There's like um, there's just all sorts of things. So I just went to Mexico, right? And I came back, and I had a commitment to come back to Vancouver. And that included taking these flights and going through immigration and going through kind of, not so, it was fine, but it wasn't particularly that I committed to the, whatever it was, 4 hour delay in LAX that I needed to experience because that's what happened. Um, so it's just how are you with what's happening? Can you include yourself? So if students are in those classes to relax their body, their system open and receive what they're experiencing, both in sitting in their chair and tending to the physical in being comfortable, i.e. warm enough clothes, feeding oneself so they're not hungry in class, and then just receiving what there is to receive. And then they can lean on their own commitment and say, well, I committed to this, so therefore I'm going to just see what happens. It's like I committed to a 10-day Vipassana workshop. Now, I didn't know what a Vipassana workshop. This is shortly after, I guess it was in the year 1999. So it was after
Work with Paul.
coming into this. Well, Paul and then Isaac, but it was after the coming into the stateless state of being. What I heard was 10 days of silence. And that's what I was attracted to go and just sit in silence. And then when I got there was this whole technique that they were teaching about following your breath and doing this and that. And at first there was a part of me that just went, well, wait, you don't need to do that. Just be with what is. And then I stopped and I said, no, I signed up for this container called Vipassana. So I'm going to trust it and I'm going to follow the steps that they offer. And, I didn't need to buy into some of the stuff like, keep on trying and all this sort of stuff.
Well, the reasons behind it, you
Because
didn't
I
have to
knew
really
that,
do, you get involved with, but
well, it was still goal oriented. This technique was all about the possibility of attaining the awakened state because these are the steps that apparently happened with Buddha prior to his full awakening. It was part of his process. So it's repeating this process that apparently he went through. So that definitely refined a lot of my system in spending 10 days being with the cellular structure of this body, being with the organs and the breath and the physicality. And it taught me a lot. Was it towards awakening? Well, there was already, the awakeness was already there. But it further refined the system. So it was a bonus anyway. And so the part that can be pointing to is to let go of, as if you're going somewhere, like headed towards an awakening, but just be with whatever process you've signed up for.
Well, university students are definitely going toward something, right? They're going toward a degree, they're going toward a job, going toward graduate work, and that's a big part of it. And like I'm saying, okay, like I keep asking you this because I'm getting involved myself, but I'm real curious. But I mean, can you give a lecture about this? I mean, how I mean, how can you approach it?
Well,
How can you
it
bring
could
this up? I
definitely,
mean,
you could be there and offer people support in how to be with themselves simultaneously as in a lecture hall, how to commit to becoming a lawyer. And then in each moment, you let go of the bigger commitment unless you need to support yourself to go through the tough bits when you don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to study before exam, or you want to go to a party instead of studying. Then you remember your commitment. No, I committed to this. Is it still true for me? Do I still want to be whatever a lawyer means? And if the felt sense and the answer is yes, well then it's studying instead of going to the party. And I don't know, maybe there's a lot of students that might chuckle at that and say that they could go to the party and become a lawyer.
they're just doing the networking
Excuse
part,
me.
right? They're just
I don't know. Something's very easy for one person that isn't as easy for the next person simply because of who they are, you know? Like, and that's just how they were born. It's nothing that there's something more than someone or less than. Like, I am not more than someone else because I happen to be born with white skin and brown hair with green eyes. That does not make me more than someone who may have been born with Aboriginal skin and dark eyes and dark hair. It's just how we happen to have shown up. So I'm just saying it's the same thing for someone who might find going to law school easy compared to somebody who might have to actually really buckle up, buckle down and study and prepare themselves for exams. It's the same as somebody being at ease with lots of money and other people coming into this lifetime needing to learn how to become at ease with lots of money. But certainly you can support people to offer them a space, a lecture perhaps, to support them to relax into what they're actually experiencing, to taste that and get that a little more thickened or gelled before they go into their calculus class or whatever class they've committed to. It could be a class that supports them to receive what's available at the university. And of course, the side effect would be supporting awareness and supporting them as a conscious being. I mean, what could be better?
Yeah, I just like talking about the side effects, right? Because we don't really have to aim dead on at any kind of like conceptual benefits or what it's all about, but just somehow working in certain contexts and placing interest in certain places just has immense side effects, or maybe main line effects.
Yeah, it's. I did a workshop with my husband, my current husband, in Calgary for a trucking company. Now, and this is in in this time of full consciousness, and what the outward appearance is a workshop for. It was called From Good to Great. It was a team building workshop for a business, for the managers of this company, and all the main team players, 21 people. And in that, I invited people to meditate. Offered some toning to support relaxation into themselves, and suggested that spending time with themselves was going to support them to be more at ease with each other. And what could be more true than that? So, like this at a university, to support people to be more at ease with themselves, more at ease with their classes, and stay with their commitment, and best as possible, not letting ideas of the future to overwhelm them in the moment, but just to stay with what is, and they can step through things without taking on a huge amount of stress.
I've been actually contemplating teamwork as a metaphor, and of course it is just getting along, and getting along, of course, is like world peace, actually. I mean, but if I would say world peace in many of these discussions that I'd have, I mean, I'm not so sure people would say there is no world and there is no peace, or everything that is, or I don't know what. But I mean, that wouldn't. These discussions aren't. World peace is not something that can get discussed too much on Never Not Here.
Well, it's world peace. It's how peaceful is this unit, this system of humanness, because everything that is outside is a reflection of ourselves. So taken literally, supporting that peace within yourself absolutely supports world peace, universe peace. Putting energy and time toward being at peace with yourself is the way to bring peace to the world, because that supports other people to tune in into their own, perhaps, direction of peacefulness, rather than this attempt to control the outer world, which is what is the opposite of peace, is where
I'm in
war.
total alignment with that, and that
Yes.
I'm absolutely sure that that's how it works, and that would be my total focus. And yet, in order to be in that environment, probably there would be some outward projects going on too, and partnership with Ghana or something like that, or outreach to the Middle East, or But I mean, I wouldn't really get lost in that, or I
Yeah.
would want to support that just by saying, well, who is it that's supporting the Middle East? How, and what is the joy that we want to transfer over there? In the state of personal well
Or
being, and shouldn't we work out of that? Instead
yeah,
of
or
instead of us
supporting.
instead of us falling into their anxiety and working out it and letting them be their reflectors and saying, okay, let's work out of their anxiety. That's an anxious place over there, and let's adopt some of that anxiety to push us into reacting just the way they're reacting. Somehow
Yeah,
we have
like
to have this foundation that. Go
well,
ahead.
it's letting go of any right or wrong, right? If there's a wrong side, that means there's a right side, and if there's a right side, that means there's a wrong side. Letting go of both of those and seeing what's available, what is working, and supporting that 100%. So you have your lecture, and you have a group of people who are interested in world peace, and being together, perhaps meditating together, and then seeing what wants to happen. What different ideas do those particular people bring to the group? Seeing what's, perhaps more than one person has a similar idea. Maybe there's an essence of direction with that group, and as the sharing goes on, something begins to form, and steps start to come out of the discussion on what people can do. I mean, I'm sure this is what started the different programs of where people go into other countries and they bring livestock for the people themselves, to help themselves out of poverty, or support them to learn how to dig a deep enough well, and support them with proper equipment so they can help themselves. Um, you know, Supporting independence, or an interdependence of working together, and what we can take to these other places, in support of what does work. What is giving, what is real support, instead of even touching on the stuff about what is right and what is wrong, and all the ideas, and how we get pulled left, right, and center, and away from what is, by
Yeah, many times when
judging
we're
stuff
talking
as
about
right
what
and
is
wrong.
right and what is wrong, we're talking about like we're trying to get business solutions or something like that. In a way, we could be it could be taken that we're pushing capitalism on them, and we want our model of the world to be everywhere. And it looks like that in a way where we are the one that is trying to do a psychological takeover. and
Right.
we're not really listeners. We're just we're spreading our truths, and I would, yeah, I see that as a danger. I would try to kind of caution on that.
Well, the way to work with that is to include the local people. That you don't actually, you can have your ideas before you get there, but if you actually go to the village and you include what would work for them, and you get their ideas and their sharings in the group, perhaps like that, meditating together, and then seeing what wants to happen, what would be the best thing, what would bring the most joy and love, support to their community. It's including them and then bringing whatever it is we bring to the container and offering that. So it's the interrelatedness. It's working together rather than making a decision based on ideas of what it looks like from our Western mind.
Right. That's what world peace is to me, including them. Whoever
Yes.
those thems are. Including them. And
Yeah.
then inclusiveness is also ecology, because you're including the environment. Inclusiveness is also business because you're including your suppliers and customers. And
Yeah.
it's all a
Well, there's different
wholeness.
ideas
It's all a wholeness. And then that would be the world peace.
because our ideas of what poverty even is, if somebody's living in a grass hut, that sounds to some people like not a very good thing. But living in a grass hut in some climates, it's the best solution. It's actually quite natural. And if you were to actually go there and stay in that grass hut yourself, you might find it's quite comfortable and not
Not only that,
a hardship.
by our
But
standards, but you might also be healed. One time I was
yeah,
trying to sell some kind of a natural paint, and they said that if you actually live in rooms that are painted like this, your health is totally, totally different than compared to a latex paint or oil-based paint. And somehow the off-gassing and all that we're so used to accepting from everything around us is an enormous pressure. And in a grass hut might be just a total awakening. I don't know.
right.
We don't know any of
Well,
those things.
but ultimately, once a person is living truly of themselves, all those things can be like, it's not to make even all that stuff wrong. It's to improve where you can, right? And to make choices to the best of what you know. Like, I've never heard of this paint that you talk of. So
Well, it's
out of
simple.
oil.
It's milk paint, What do they call it? It's casein.
Oh,
I mean,
okay, because
everybody knows about casein, really, in one way or another. But I mean, no, casein is an old paint, old form of paint made out of milk.
oh, okay. Oh, wow. So I didn't really know that. I mean, I when you say natural types of paint, I'm thinking about um, you
It's
know clay diluted that might
right.
be red.
Well, paint is just pigment and binder. So in this case,
Okay,
the binder is milk.
right. So, but before you spoke this right now, I didn't know that that was something that could be a choice. So, my choices at the time of choosing paint for a room in our house just last year um, was between latex or oil. So I chose latex because it seemed more um, natural and more environmentally okay, but that's all I knew about.
Right, right.
So,
So, like, okay,
so
now
let's,
you said like you might talk to people in university, and you did say something about dialogue, and you said I might point toward meditation. And I don't know. I would maybe it's good to pause or slow down so that you can really watch your mental process in a way. I would point toward dialoguing, and I would look at ways to unhook dialogue from yesterday's dialogue and let it be fresh. Maybe that's meditation and pause too. Maybe that's what that is.
that that that's what I call meditation. It's letting go of the peripheral ideas and stresses and energies, giving yourself time to just relax the body, relax the system, so that all that stuff can let go, and then you can start fresh in an openness, in a new space of being in touch with yourself as a human being in the moment. That's what I feel meditation is for. um, a place to let go of what doesn't really matter, and what does matter will remain present with you. So then tending to what does matter,
You
what's
do,
left after.
you don't even have to make the choice. In other words, it just shows up. It's
That's right.
what sticks around does matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the healing process too, right? You don't have to actually, sure, if you know something needs some healing because you can feel it, and you move toward it, but you don't really have to uh, go and heal the inner child or anything, because as you give yourself more space in awareness, whatever's ready next to heal will just show up, and then you get to tend to that part of yourself. So you don't need to go looking outside of yourself for
So again,
healing.
that's what you called the invitation in the very beginning of our talk. You said
That's
that's the invitation to heal what comes up. Heal just means stay with it and be with it,
whatever it is.
and not just accept it or embrace it, or not really even nothing proactive. Really, just somehow invite it. It invites you, and you invite it back.
That's right, but there might be times of action. So when you say not be proactive, I mean, there's a lot of people in the in touch with spiritual ideas that say, "Oh, this non-doing is about not participating." But basically, when something repeats itself to you uh, more than twice, then that's you speaking to you, and to take yourself up on the offer and take whatever action is being called for. Because many people, it's what we spoke about earlier. There's being in the river of being outwardly dependent, and then there's the abstaining from participating. And then people say, "Oh, well, that's I'm trusting what is. I'm trusting what is," and they don't participate. That's the other side of the very center, which is the moment, which might say sit still, and it might say turn left, and it might say speak to so and so. Who knows? But it does often include some sort of action, as we are alive. We're alive beings in form that gets to move, if that's the right thing.
It's a little tricky, you're right, because when you think there's nothing to do, then really what you're actually doing, not doing, and it's so easy to fall into that, and it's kind of like a freeze up. So
Yeah,
then that's not natural either.
No, anything, often people judge stuff that comes up that looks particularly human as being not spiritual. Like, say, being frustrated or something like that, when that is just as spiritual as being happy. It's just what it is. It's how you are with it that is the difference. How are you with frustration when it rises? Can you just feel it instead of acting on it? I mean, it kind of goes back to what we spoke of before in addictions. Do you just feel the frustration, or do you react because frustration is there and you're trying to get away from frustration? I mean, it's the craziest thing, because if frustration is what's present, it's already happening. There's no way to get away from it. It already is. The only thing you can do, and I say in quotations do, is be with that. So, I mean, that includes the idea of the university and stuff, is that at times you may feel quite frustrated with yourself for having committed to, and I'm just using this again, this becoming a lawyer, or becoming a, whatever, a computer scientist or an astronaut, or whatever it is you're going to school for. And it's following through on that commitment and using that, and even though things might look off or uncomfortable, to just be human and accept yourself in that, and just go, okay, so you're only human, you're tired, and even though it looks like maybe you should keep on studying all night because of some exam, that really to take care of yourself, you do need to stop, and you're going to trust that natural part of tending to you as a physical being, as being true and right, and getting some rest before that exam. So that's where in the moment decisions, because the next moment it might be a totally different thing. So this idea of yours of going into a university, and I can picture you there uh, supporting these students to relax into what they already are so they can hear that voice inside of them that says what is the right thing for them in that moment. What is the most loving thing for them to choose, inclusive of those commitments that they've made as a human being. If you are supporting that, you're making their lives easier, you're supporting the university, you're supporting world peace. It's a win-win-win all the way around. It's wonderful. So, I love this idea that you're going to be out there. I don't know if this is true, but that's what I'm picturing is you're going
It's
to
true.
be.
It's actually true.
Yeah.
It
That you're
just
going to
came
be
on
in a
like
university.
gangbusters, I'll tell you what it is, somehow. There is something in a business school right here, very close, 10 minutes from my house. And
Excellent. Yeah.
it's amazing. And it's a Catholic university called Dominican. So it's run by Dominican sisters, I think. And it
Oh, that's wonderful.
was the Rosary College. But the Dominican is because the big school in Chicago's Loyola, and that's Jesuit. And that's a multi-billion-dollar operation. And that's huge. And this is Dominican with like 4,000 students and really, really full of love. It's unbelievable.
That's great. Oh, that's just wonderful. I don't know. I just feel a
It's so
wonderful beaming
true.
inside as you
There's so
speak
much
about
truth
this.
there. I can't believe it. So then
Yeah,
they
and the
got these
joy.
mottos, like charity and knowledge is their motto, caritas and veritas. And
Yeah,
then they translated like love of learning or sharing learning.
yeah. And like that in charity, if they're charitable to themselves and giving themselves space to get to know who they are as a human being, and if that's what you're supporting, then you'll support them to be able to digest their
You can't
courses
believe
and
it. You can't
classes.
believe it. So then there's this
Um,
thing called the Center for Global Peace through Commerce, which is like they want to
yeah,
outreach. They want to outreach and they want to make a playground for just dialogue and discovering what makes the world work. It's unbelievable.
that's
And I just
beautiful.
fell right
See, and
into it.
that's
I just
where,
totally fell right
you
into
know,
it.
the so that's great. So,
Uh,
um,
so
I don't
then they
know. It
want to
just
do
gives
this
me like a
outreach,
wonderful.
thing, and so then they went. Just got this idea, this playground where dialoguing for me is so real and so like when it's ownership already because you're discovering together. And
Yeah.
so I want to make this this platform of dialogue, and so then I got this idea to do just like Never Not Here, But what I know how to do is so I'm going to call it like Global Peace Live Television. And
Nice. Yeah.
I'll just start to broadcast discussions and bring in people on Skype and talk about like we're talking now, or just talk, hook up with the other universities or talk about, all over the world basically. And then just make a place where students can talk to students can talk to experts or not so much experts or functionaries or anybody that's working in certain areas and create projects and just grassroots, not wait for the administration. It's got already huge loads trying to make study abroad programs and all that and wait for
Yeah.
something to be laid on them from the top down. But you could just say there's such a diversity at this school. There's kids from maybe 90 countries or something like that. So my
Wow.
idea is that they're all there. Their friends are in school at home. Just hook up, and then we'll just Skype together, or we'll broadcast lectures to each other, or we'll make projects, what their issues are. And all of a sudden, these kids by themselves with no direction from anybody, they'll fit it somehow into a class and get some kind of credit for it or something. But somehow
Yep.
we'll just do it, and it's totally
That's
amazing.
that's something that I didn't actually include in part of why I live in North Vancouver is because my sons I wanted them to be able to attend what's considered a free school here. Free school, not, it's publicly funded, so it's part of the Canadian school system. But it's not based on following the curriculum. Instead, it supports the students to follow their interest and learn courses, take courses that support them in their interest. So that coincided with my own felt sense to be supportive to my sons, and yet didn't feel that homeschooling was the way to be with them 100% of the time. So this perfect school came up, and it's a community, and so that's been a support for them to be able to be resourceful, and it just reminds me what you're saying about this community that you're speaking of, that you're creating.
But even like we could
see,
even hook up to that school, right? And we could just talk about like
yeah.
what's another way of education, because there is an education in college in this university, and then they want to know and have a project about like, well, what is the concept of that, and let's just make a live hookup and just discover it. I mean, the world's at our fingertips. Yeah. Really, we've proven that space doesn't exist through the internet.
And the thing is that people who are afraid of the system without a curriculum, without a bunch of rules and regulations to follow. This school that my children went to is called Windsor House. And they would talk about Windsor House as, the place where kids don't get an education. And at the same time, my son, Stephen, he's in university taking computer science and doing very well, was on the dean's list, in fact. And that's apparently without a forced education. So that's with him.
Well, there's like even here, there's a lot of flexibility, because when I was interviewing all those students, some of them said, "Oh, I'm just going to see my professor. We're making up a new major for me," And so then they're really flexible as far as putting things together.
That sounds marvelous.
I did an interview in India 2 years ago. I went to I think Kudalore, I think it was. But anyhow, a lady had started a school some 10, 12 years ago, and her credo was that kids should be happy. And it's all about kids should be happy. I'll repeat that. It's all about just following your interest. And it was amazing from 4 to 14. Just totally amazing. Totally amazing.
Yeah, this is kindergarten to grade 12.
I've never really shared that, but those things are, those kids, I can say kids over there, but they were totally amazing.
Yeah. That's my finding here too with the school. I mean, it did become a little more politically inclusive of the latter years, and I'm not, it's, been waffling a little bit and adjusting, integrating where they can go, but the gist of the school is still there. But it seemed to me that it existed perfectly for Stephen and Danny to be supported in a way that felt true and right to me in my own love of them. I could no longer send them off to some school that was going to make them into a number and tell them whether they were good or bad based on what the curriculum was. That just didn't fit for me. It didn't feel true or right, and felt diminishing. And so in my own heart, I could not continue to support them to go to such a school. So that's why we moved to North Vancouver. Moved from Massachusetts to North Vancouver.
Wow, that school must have been kind of famous to draw you that far, right?
For a publicly funded school worldwide, yes, it is kind of famous in its own way, because most of the schools like this are privately funded. People have to come up with the funds, whereas this was actually included in the regular school system as an option that your kids could go to. And to me, it felt like the perfect miracle. So as a single parent, where their father lived in another country, it was the interdependent system of where they could go, and I knew that they could flourish and be supported where I could take care of things at home. And it all felt good. And it's been just a wonderful blessing. And again, thankfulness comes up again to Windsor House and that it exists, that it existed for my children was just wonderful.
It's all based on somebody's commitment to just make it a reality.
Yeah, it was Helen Hughes, her commitment, because she found the same thing. She could no longer send her own child to the regular school system, so she decided to. She was a principal in a school and a teacher, so she decided to start a school of her own, and that's the school, Windsor House.
Amazing dream.
Yeah.
So
realized.
That's what I'm up to. It could move very, very fast, actually. I did my first broadcast on yesterday. I did a class on sustainability, which was really, really far out.
And are they live, or are they just only at
they're going to be live. They're going to be live, and they're going to be all over the world, is the way my vision is. But, until people know about it, nobody's going to be there. But then there'll be archives too. So somehow we have to gather some archives and show what we're doing and show our schedule and
connect it to the school systems, the school networks and stuff like that.
Right. Just, every school that everything where we get turned on, it could be the Windsor House and, other places.
Yeah. Like-hearted places. Yeah.
They're all over the world. They're all over the world. We just heard about an Italian school in Milan that has actually a Center for Excellence, and they call it Global Peace Through Commerce. And actually, they've been hitting up our university. They're a Catholic university, too, and they've been hitting us up for 2 years. I'll say us. I'm only there 60 hours, but they've been hitting us up for 2 years, and people just are misunderstanding. There's a few people that really want to get involved, and then kind of like the administration are saying, well, is it going to be income produced generating, or what do they want? Or we don't have time to look at it, But I'm not blaming them. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that it doesn't really need to happen like a gift from administrative powers.
Right.
I could just see that it can just be organic.
Yeah.
Just grow up. You just need a kind of like a connection, and the internet is a connection, of course. But if it's done in a certain way, it works. Miracles.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's your intention.
So that's my life for 2011. We're going to see.
That's great. Really good. Yeah. I just see your whole being lights up, and just the joy that emanates through you when you speak of that stuff. So it's obviously the right direction.
Imagine when I'm there, Imagine when I'm there. I'm just totally dancing.
Yeah, that's great. I look forward to seeing some of your broadcasts.
Yeah.
Today.
Be a part of them.
Yeah. Yeah. See you in that action place where you're dialoguing and communicating and sharing, and hearing the sharing that comes of this space that you're offering these young people.
Yeah, first I'm going to create the space, I don't know if I'm going to do, whether I'm the facilitator or I'm everything. I'm the trainer and I don't know, I'm the intention.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it seems like it would be a good idea for you to be involved in the facilitation, because of the strength of your essence would be supportive without even having to talk about that, right?
Right. I definitely want to talk about it in another way, whether I even say those words, or certainly nothing of non-duality, nothing of any kind of like alternative to life,
Well, unless it comes up, right? Because we've been talking non-duality in respect to it in a way.
Yeah, but now without the words.
Yes, without those specific words.
It's really what's the true about it.
Yeah. Well, I had to find out that I even was an Advaita teacher through somebody else because they had put an ad up saying, come to satsang with Canela, and had beta teacher. And I had to go back to the person and say, so
So
what
what
does
am I
that mean?
doing?
And so it was true when he described what that was. It was very true. But it, I didn't know that that's what it was that I was supporting. It's just exactly how it came, right? It wasn't, I didn't know anything about it beforehand. So kind of a different way for it to emerge. Very natural. Just like how in this conversation it's emerged, because the non-dual teachings per se are exactly what we've been discussing, in being connected to source simultaneously as experiencing life. That that's as one. That is it. So it's just supporting people to actually the practical aspects of how that literally can be in a regular living of a life. Like you say, going to school, going to university, or a job. It could look on the outside like field dependency, but it would be based on the person and their experience. The whole difference totally is whether are they experiencing it as they go. They are anyway, as you know. At some level, they are experiencing it anyway, but are they conscious of that experience? Are they with all of it? So I don't know. I see that you would be taking Advaita into the schools without calling it that.
Absolutely.
Right?
I wouldn't be
Yeah.
calling it that anyhow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me just say a couple of things then, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, so like we just talked for quite a while, and I could just feel like myself going in and out or up and down, or I mean, there was a real ride, and I could say I went to some very, very, very clear and bright spaces. And in one way, we could say, well, we really have a good conversation together, or somehow we really connect, or somehow, or somehow we could. It's easy to say that traditionally I would say, oh, you're a very high teacher, right, or something like that. But I mean, what was really happening there? I mean, somehow I was going in and out of my interests or something like that, where everything kind of dropped away. And then, I mean, we were perusing all these different interests and these different ways to describe things. And somehow something was happening where somehow this great brightness would come. And then I would say, come back. And then and then I would have self-judgment saying I'm getting too heady, or this part of the conversation is going too long. Or then somehow I just go back into this gold, and I mean, like, it's just a process of me, but I mean, it's so often put on that the other person was transmitting such a great power, I mean, but it's just really realizing what, I don't know. I don't know what it is, I think it could happen at any time, and whether you need to call attention to it or not, or give it a label, especially.
Well, it's what you're allowing for yourself, right? And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Is that people want to attach their experiences to somebody else, and say, oh, if I go to satsang with Canela, then I can have these experiences, and then they leave satsang, or apparently leave satsang, and then all of a sudden, they don't have that in their lives, and that's not really how the truth is that they can allow, just like whatever, anywhere, anytime, these, and I'm sure that people do. It's just that they give themselves more permission, perhaps, in containers of offerings, right? That they actually dedicated time to go and be with someone. I mean, in our connection here, I just feel like there's an effortlessness that's occurring, that's, I don't know, meeting itself. I mean, I know that those are kind of corny words, but the direct experience is there's a meeting of itself happening here. Um, and perhaps it's the mutual love that it seems like to me that we share in supporting um, people to live more easily and joyfully, um, and recognizing that in each other. These energies come and ignite us.
Right. That's just like that's probably a big part of it. When I just somehow internalize or have a vision of really giving giving this pointer toward freedom to someone that could be such a, I don't know, could really know what to do with it. Just seems like, whoa, that would be really a gift. That would really be a gift.
You're recognizing yourself or something? Sounds like, it's sounds like your gift. I mean, and it's not about knowing something, right? It's about just being willing to be with the container that you're creating and totally trusting yourself.
No, it's totally like that. I've sunk into that really well lately. I've just really recognized that there's no efforting whatsoever.
Yeah,
no efforting. There's no knowing, and there's nobody. There's no. I don't have to perform because I'm not doing it anyhow. I mean, I don't know. That's corny too.
But yet, when it's true, it's just
true,
it's
right? Kind of like that, But I must be an easier way to say it.
I don't know. That's the old thing. It's hard to actually put words to things, to experiences. But that this container is being created and you're being invited to play in this way. I mean, it's like a setup from the universe, which is you yourself, to be able to express this expression of awareness that you are. To its fullness, right?
I don't know. It's so amazing, Like, I mean, within hours, I was just thrown into this thing in this university and this with things to do, and able to actualize myself and think, the things I know second nature, like that are no effort whatsoever. And I mean, somehow I was propelled even into a board of directors meeting and started talking to the board and the president of the university. Not for a long time, but I mean, like within hours. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Like people would take years and years to get in there, And I don't know what would come of it or what, but just totally amazing. I mean, it's going so fast. It's just like, I don't know. It doesn't, it feels, there's no effort whatsoever. It doesn't feel risky or anything. I mean, just
it's time.
Yeah, really, totally time.
Yeah. When something wants to happen, it will. And that's not from a person wanting something to happen. That's just the universe says, okay, it's time for this. And you're just available, right?
Totally. I'm totally available for this one.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Thanks so much for spending the afternoon with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm glad my cold symptoms have decided to stay a little at bay.
Everything is pretty good.
And that it hasn't been full of coughing and sneezing and stuff. I feel fine. And as I said, I felt fine at the beginning. It's just that some of these symptoms were present earlier today. And yeah, thank you for this space and time and getting also this this interviewing happening with better equipment that I provided for myself is great. And I just really want to applaud you in your work. And I know, see, it's not really work, right? When it comes in this effortless way, it's your play. And yet, if you look at it sort of behind it, you could call it your work.
Yeah, right? maybe behind it, I worked up to it or something like that. And then finally I let go. something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know how to say that.
Well, I think you were speaking, in the last time we spoke, you were speaking about being ready to play more of Richard, you know? Uh, and so you've created this container to be able to share your particular support, which is, so that's what I'm applauding. And just
Yeah.
feels good, um, feels time, and what a wonderful difference that could make being in the school system like that.
Yeah, it couldn't have been better, really. Can't be better. So, everybody, Canela Michelle Meyers. So, thanks a lot again.
My pleasure, absolutely. And thank you, Richard.